Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having Recharge Metals on this webinar. Our pursuit isn't nearly as noble as our previous presenters in terms of wound care and global food supply, but we are a copper explorer. If we can go to the next slide, please. So Recharge only listed in October last year. We're copper explorers, we've said, and we think copper is important, not only for the battery metal sort of revolution that's taking place, but copper is important for so many varieties of not only battery metal, but renewable energy, but also for electronics and just general conductivity, I should say. We have three WA projects. Our Brandy Hill project is our primary focus, but also we have Tampia East and our Bohemia project in the Kimberleys. But as I've just alluded to, the focus is on our Brandy Hill South project. So we only listed in October. We haven't been idle. We hit the ground running, and we've completed over 6,000 metres of drilling that's included RC and diamond tails. We completed our first program of RC and diamond through January through to May, and that intercepted some significant copper, nickel and silver mineralisation. We also conducted some downhole TEM surveys, which intersected several high or identified several high order conductors, and we've actually just completed the drilling on those conductors, which I'll talk to in detail a little bit later. If we can go to the next slide, please. So just a quick overview of our cap structure, where we've got a very tight structure. We've only got 45 million shares on issue, very low market cap at the moment. We've still got cash, some good cash at bank. Our top 20 is taken up by about 46% of the shareholding, and our biggest backer there is the Pamplona Group. If we can go to the next slide, please. Just a quick overview of why we wanted to have a copper focus is that, again, it's not just the battery metals, it's also the renewable energy space, and that copper is used in a lot of different things. And the copper price is tipped to have a strong demand in the future and a strong price in the future as well. And that second graph just shows some of the demand for the copper over the next 10 to 15 years. If we can go to the next slide, please. So overview of our Brandy Hill South project. It's located in the Midwest of Western Australia, 20 kilometres south of the Deflector project, which is Silver Lake holds. We have 6 exploration licenses and one prospecting licence, which is quite a decent footprint. The area is well serviced by infrastructure and road and rail also, and close by towns of Morawa and Yalgoo. If we can go to the next slide, please. So just to cover the downhole TEM survey, which we completed at the end of in both February and May, they identified 6 conductors and 2 very high order conductors of 2,400 Siemens and 7,000 Siemens. Basically, what that measurement indicates is the higher the reading is, the higher likelihood that you will have massive sulfide. On the back of that study, we've just recently gone out and completed another RC diamond program to test all those conductors. What we found is that with after the townhole TEM survey is that we identified that we're probably drilling in the right area, but it's basically just identified that there, which you don't know before you drill the conductors, but or test the conductors, but it did identify that we were drilling in the right area, but potentially it just identified a few better spots. One of the interesting things that came out of the identification was the significant conductor to the west of the Salt Creek Shear, which we had initially targeted our drilling just to the hanging wall side or the east of the Salt Creek Shear, thinking that would be the main mineralisation would be. But that conductor has opened up a new sort of area for us and given us a lot of width, as opposed to having more of a narrow, just along the shear focus for us. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the diamond drilling program, which was identified to test these conductors, we've just reported these recently in the last couple of weeks. So the first 2 holes that were drilled, identified, was drilled through the conductor from the last page, which was west of the shear through the red conductor. That was holes 27 and 28, and that was testing the highest order conductor that we had. Both of those holes intersected zones of massive and blebby and disseminated pyrites, and that included chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite, and also coincided with the positional location of the conductor, which was a great result for us. The following 2 holes, which we've recently just reported on, I think the beginning of this week, were holes 29 and 30. And again, that was testing the second highest order conductor we had. And again, both of those holes had the same intersection of massives and blebbies and disseminated sulfides flowing through, and again with chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite. Again, coincided with the position of the high order conductors, which is again great. And the 5th hole, which is testing 2 of the conductors to the south of close to hole diamond hole 18. The drilling has been completed, and we'll be hoping to get an announcement out on that. We're just finishing off the processing of the core and get an announcement out on that as well. So we're anticipating assay results for the 8 pre-collar holes very shortly, hopefully within the next week. And we're busily getting all the core cut and sampled into the lab. There's 1 hole that's already in the lab. Another hole is about to go into the lab over the weekend. And then the remaining holes will go in hopefully by the end of next week. The photo there that you can see, that just indicates some of the chalcopyrite in the hosted in the quartz veining from hole 29 that we just announced recently. So there is a high prevalence of chalcopyrite as we go through, especially in and around the conductor, which gives us great confidence that we will actually have some we'll get some higher grade assay results with than previously. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this slide is just really a summary of our earlier RC program that we completed in January, and the diamond drilling that was completed in May. And you can see through that there is some significant results there, and some high grade as well. If you flick through with 32 meters at 0.49%. So a lot of it, there seems to be, what we have a shallower supergene structure with the copper, and then as we hit the fresh rock, then we have these larger intersections as we go through deeper in the hole. We had a large weather event that occurred at the end of March, which was right in the middle of our diamond program, which meant that we had almost a month delay in between our first and second hole. We were halfway down the second hole when the weather event hit, which was basically a 1 in 20 year event, and flooded through all the Salt Lake system there and prevented us from getting to the drill rig, which was frustrating and disappointing. But we finally got back out there to finish the program. But very excited with the results that we got for the diamond, also the RC. The most significant results for the diamond were 93 meter intersection at 0.35 copper. And then in hole 18, again, we had more copper results, but also we identified, especially in holes 18 and 19, that there was significant nickel mineralization through the pre-collar from about 50 meters all the way through to about 170 meters. So that was great. And then on top of that, we also had silver identified along which correlated with through the fresh rock with the copper mineralization. So if I go to the next slide, please. So just a quick overview of the board. I didn't really explore this too much to start with, but it consists of Simon Andrew, myself, and Felicity Rapaccioli-Muir. We think we've got a fairly good blend of corporate and commercial and technical capability to take the company forward, and they're also great to work with. If I go to the next slide. So why recharge? Well, we have a copper focus. Copper's going to be a critical metal going forward in the future. We haven't sat on our hands, as we've said previously. We're an active explorer. we've already, through our initial drilling program, identified some significant results. As we've got there, the 93-metre intersection of copper, 57 metres of nickel, 42 metres of nickel, and 234 metres of silver. We've then gone out and had the downhole TEM survey, which has identified these high order conductors, which we've just drilled, and we've identified significant zones of massive and blebby and disseminated sulfides that coincide with the location and position of those high order conductors. And now we're just waiting for assay results. So that will really dictate where we go from here, but we're really looking forward to getting those assay results. So that's
well done, Brett. A great presentation. Clearly, you're looking forward to the assay results, and I would assume, as are your shareholders with bated breath. Some outstanding results coming through. Were they in line with what you were thinking, or have they blown your socks off a little bit as well?
I guess no, they're in line. I think the nickel and the silver were a little bit of a surprise. We weren't seeing a lot of the nickel further off the shear. The nickel seems to be localized along the shear. So some of the pre-collars that we've actually drilled and identified, and some of these other diamond holes that we've drilled with, 3 of the holes are very close to the shear with the recent program. 2 are way off. They're 300 metres away from the shear, in which I targeted that first conductor. So yeah, it's the copper we thought would be around there. I guess, like everyone, we're hoping for a higher grade than what you actually get, but 0.35 is still is a solid grade, especially if we've got the tonnage. But I think we haven't actually hit the sweet spot yet of where we're drilling at the moment. Hopefully that will come from the assay results we get from targeting these conductors, and then from here it'll be targeting and vectoring and identifying where to go next to do the drilling. But I think we are in the right area. We just need to do a bit more interpretation and a bit more vectoring to target where we go to next from here. But yeah, very excited at this stage.
Talking about the neighbourhood, how crowded is it? You mentioned Silver Lake to your northeast, I believe. How crowded is the neighbourhood? There's not a lot of empty ground in Western Australia, and things are getting snapped up, and people are very active. Do you have a crowded neighbourhood, and how closely are they watching what you're doing, do you think?
I've got a lot of people watching this. Silver Lake we've talked to the exploration manager at Silver Lake, but they've got an active program happening at the moment to the north of us. But for whatever reason, there's a shift in the ground with the mineralisation where we're not seeing any gold at all, and Silver Lake's deflector is predominantly a gold mine with copper credits. So the ground's quite well held. There's a little bit of vacant ground, but a lot of it's covering Salt Lake and or reserves, which you can't really do anything on, in conservation ground and timber reserves. So, but in the area, we've got Golden Grove, which is a copper. We've got there's an historic tungsten mine to the south of us. There's a lot going on in the neighbourhood that would indicate that we're in the right spot to get a resource, hopefully down the track.
And people keeping an eye on you?
People keeping an eye on us. That's fine. Quite happy to chat with them.
And in terms of the path forward, what does the next 6 to 8 months look for? What should the signposts or the key milestones that investors or potential investors be looking forward for as measurements of success and the path forward?
So it's really getting these assay results in and really crunching the data. We've done a lot of work on, obviously, with the logging of the diamond and probably logged more structures than I generally would. I've just got back on Tuesday from the drilling. It was a week, been up there pretty much on and off for the last month while that drilling's happened, doing the logging. So really it's crunching all the data and then reviewing what we've done. And we've also, through this time, had thin sectional petrology samples done, and we've got them back, which has been great in confirming and identifying the lithologies, which is really important. And we've also had some micro-XRF data, again, which has been aimed really to identify geochemistry and mineralogy of the rock units.
For those who don't know, why is it important to understand the lithology of the rocks and the mineralization and some of those techniques you've just touched on?
Yeah, so when you go through and you log your hole, basically the lithology is just a different type of rocks as you go through your drill hole, and And as you go through there, you have different sort of intrusive elements of rocks, and then you've got effectively the host rock. So you start out with, you generally your overlying alluvials, and then you go through a transition rock. And then what we've got now is either a mix of mafic and ultramafic and some intermediary rocks and porphyry intrusions going through as well. And what you're looking for is, okay, where is your main mineralization held within each units? So is the copper more prevalent within the mafic unit, or is it more prevalent in the ultramafic unit? And so that's why it's really important to understand your lithology, and then also where your structures are and what's hosting the rock and what's hosting the best part of the rock, because then you can start mapping and doing some interpretation through as you go. So it's really important. So going back to your previous question, what's next is yes, identifying where to be drilling next, get these results in. Hopefully we have some great intersections and great grade, and that will then lead us to targeting and vectoring into where we do an expanded drill program, and that will be our next 6 to 8 months of work.
A quality team, a great land package in a well-known, underexplored but very interesting parcel of land there in Western Australia, in the exact right neighbourhood, as you said, with the funding required and the plans ahead, vectoring in on further drill programs, which clearly drive investor interest as those results come out. Brett, thanks for your time, and we look forward to following the Recharge story as it develops over the next 6 to 12 months.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.